Did you know Budapest was once a great center of Jewish learning? Hidden in the heart of Europe, this city shaped Ashkenazi Jewish history in ways few people realize. From its golden days to dark times and its revival, Budapest holds untold stories of Jewish wisdom, survival, and legacy. But why Budapest? And why does it still matter today? To uncover these deep secrets, watch the full video and like it. There's much more to explore. Budapest, its streets whisper stories of the past. Its river flows with the weight of history. To walk through this city is to walk through time itself, where echoes of Jewish prayers once intertwined with the hum of daily life. But behind the grand facades and quiet alleyways lies a history both glorious and heartbreaking. One that shaped Ashkenazi Jewish identity in ways the world cannot forget. For centuries, Hungary was home to one of Europe's most vibrant Jewish communities. By the 19th century, Budapest had become more than just a city. It was a beacon of Jewish intellectualism, faith, and cultural brilliance. Synagogues weren't just places of worship, they were centers of thought, where rabbis and scholars debated the Torah and Talmud late into the night. Streets bustled with Jewish-owned businesses, from humble merchants to towering banks, shaping Hungary's economy. But what made Budapest truly remarkable was its role in the golden age of Jewish intellectualism. Unlike many parts of Europe where Jewish communities lived in isolation, Budapest was different. Here, Jewish minds flourished alongside Hungarian intellectuals, artists, and politicians. The city became a melting pot of religious study and secular excellence, where Jewish scholars, writers, and scientists emerged to leave their mark on history. Names like Theodor Herzl, the father of modern Zionism, traced their roots to Budapest. This was a city that didn't just house Jews, it raised visionaries, dreamers, and revolutionaries. Jewish schools and institutions thrived, producing some of the most brilliant minds in history. Budapest wasn't just another European city. It was a capital of Jewish thought. Yet, this intellectual boom didn't happen overnight. It was the result of centuries of resilience. Jews faced restrictions, discrimination, and forced conversions, yet they persevered, adapted, and thrived. By the late 1800s, they were no longer just surviving in Budapest, they were shaping its very identity. But history has its shadows. For all its achievements, the Jewish community of Budapest was constantly at the mercy of political winds. Periods of acceptance were followed by waves of anti-Semitism. The same city that once embraced its Jewish scholars would later turn its back on them. And yet, even as darkness loomed, Budapest remained a symbol of hope. Through the shifting tides of history, one truth stood firm. Budapest was, and always will be, a city of Jewish resilience. But what happened next? What led this thriving Jewish hub into the horrors of war and loss? And how, against all odds, did Jewish studies in Budapest survive? To truly understand the depths of this history, stay with us, because the story only gets deeper from here. The story of Jewish Budapest is not just about survival, it's about brilliance, resilience, and an unshakable pursuit of knowledge. Even as history turned cruel, as darkness crept into this city, something remarkable was happening. A rise in Jewish studies that would change not only Budapest, but the very foundations of Jewish thought across the world. As we saw, Budapest was more than just a city. It was a cradle of Jewish intellectualism. From its bustling synagogues to its lively Jewish districts, this was a place where ideas were born and debated. But it was during the 19th and early 20th centuries that Jewish studies in Budapest took on a new form, one that would shape generations to come. Why did Jewish studies flourish here? The answer lies in freedom and opportunity. Unlike many parts of Europe where Jews were still locked out of universities and intellectual circles, Hungary offered a rare window of inclusion. For the first time, Jewish scholars were not just participants in academic life, they were leaders. The Jewish Theological Seminary of Budapest, founded in 1877, became one of the most respected institutions for Jewish studies in the world. It wasn't just a school, it was a gateway to the past, a protector of tradition, and a home for the future of Jewish thought. Theodor Herzl, the visionary behind modern Zionism, was born in Budapest, shaped by the ideas that flowed through the city's Jewish institutions. His dream of a Jewish homeland was not born in the deserts of the Middle East, but in the streets of Budapest, among books, scholars, and unshakable debates about identity and survival. And Herzl was not alone. Great minds, thinkers, and rabbis emerged from Budapest's Jewish intellectual scene, bringing with them innovations in Jewish law, philosophy, and even science. The city produced Nobel Prize-winning Jewish scientists, economists, and historians, each carrying forward a legacy of knowledge that Budapest had nurtured for centuries. But it wasn't just about famous names. Every Jewish home in Budapest carried the spirit of learning. Families gathered around candlelit tables where parents passed down stories of ancestors, survival, and wisdom. The synagogue was not just a place of prayer. It was a classroom, a library, a debate hall. Learning was life, and life was learning. However, as history has shown, greatness often invites danger. As Budapest flourished as a Jewish intellectual hub, storm clouds gathered over Europe. What was once a city of inclusion and scholarship would soon become a battlefield for Jewish survival. The very institutions that had nurtured Jewish thought would face their greatest test. Would they endure? Would Budapest's legacy in Jewish studies survive the destruction that was to come? The answers lie in the next chapter of this story. To uncover the full truth, watch the entire video. There's more to this history than meets the eye. Knowledge is power, but history has shown us that power is often feared. The rise of Jewish studies in Budapest was a triumph, a golden age of learning, debate, and innovation. But just as the Jewish community reached new intellectual heights, a storm unlike any other came crashing down. World War II. The Holocaust. A nightmare that turned Budapest from a city of scholars into a city of ghosts. At first, the danger seemed distant. Hungary, though aligned with Nazi Germany, had not yet unleashed its full fury upon its Jewish citizens. But by 1944, that illusion shattered. In a matter of months, everything changed. The same city that had once celebrated Jewish intellectuals now became their prison. Jewish books were burned. Schools were shut down. Synagogues, once filled with the echoes of study and prayer, stood silent. The Jewish Theological Seminary, once a sanctuary for scholars, became a place of fear. Its halls no longer filled with the voices of students, but the dread of uncertainty. And then came the deportations. In just 8 weeks, over 400,000 Hungarian Jews were taken to Auschwitz. Budapest, once a beacon of Jewish scholarship, became a hunting ground. Families were torn apart, homes abandoned, lives stolen in the blink of an eye. Those who weren't sent to the camps were herded into ghettos, forced to live in unimaginable conditions, surrounded by death and despair. Imagine it. Streets where children once played, now littered with bodies. Libraries where scholars once debated, reduced to rubble. The very heart of Jewish knowledge, ripped apart by hatred. But even in the darkest times, the spirit of Jewish resilience refused to die. Some refused to surrender. The seminary, against all odds, continued to operate in secret. Teachers whispered lessons in basements, passing down sacred knowledge in hushed voices, defying the belief that Jewish studies in Budapest would ever be erased. The Nazis could destroy buildings, but they could not destroy the hunger for learning. And then, in 1945, the war ended. But the scars remained. Survivors crawled out from hiding, but their families were gone. Scholars returned, but their books had been burned. The Jewish community, once nearly 200,000 strong, had been reduced to a fraction of its former self. How does a people rebuild from ashes? How do you revive knowledge when its teachers are no more? For many, the pain was too much. Thousands of Jews fled Budapest, searching for new homes where they could rebuild their shattered lives. But others chose to stay, to fight, to resurrect the legacy that had nearly been erased. Slowly, Jewish studies in Budapest took its first steps toward revival. Schools reopened, books were rewritten, history was reclaimed. The survivors did more than rebuild. They ensured that their past would never be forgotten. But what happened next? How did Budapest's Jewish studies evolve after the war? The story is not over yet. Watch the full video to uncover the incredible rebirth of Jewish intellectual life in Budapest. The war ended, but the wounds it left behind did not heal overnight. Budapest, once a shining beacon of Jewish thought, stood in ruins. Its synagogues silent, its libraries empty, its streets haunted by memories of those who never returned. Yet even in the face of destruction, something remarkable happened. Survivors, though battered and broken, refused to let history fade. The Holocaust had taken lives, but it had not taken knowledge. It had burned books, but it had not erased the wisdom written in the hearts of those who remained. And so, from the ashes, Jewish studies in Budapest began to rise once more. At first, it was fragile. Communist rule in Hungary placed heavy restrictions on religious education, forcing Jewish learning into the shadows. The same streets that once flourished with Jewish scholars now bore the weight of silence. Faith was controlled, knowledge was monitored, and for decades the rich tradition of Jewish studies in Budapest struggled to breathe. But it never died. The Jewish Theological Seminary, a place that had once been a hub of intellectual thought, somehow survived both the Holocaust and communist rule. It remained one of the very few places in Eastern Europe where formal Jewish education was still possible. It stood not just as a school, but as a symbol, a testament to resilience, to survival, to an unbreakable will. Then came the fall of communism, and with it, a new dawn for Jewish studies in Budapest. As Hungary opened its doors to freedom, the Jewish community began to rebuild. This time, not in secret, but in the open. Schools reopened, synagogues were restored, and once again, the city became a center of Jewish learning. For the first time in decades, the voices of students debating ancient texts filled the halls of institutions that had nearly been lost to history. Today, Budapest is home to one of the most active Jewish communities in Europe. Jewish studies programs have flourished, attracting scholars from around the world who come to rediscover the knowledge that once made this city great. The Jewish Theological Seminary continues to teach, preserving traditions that date back centuries. But modern-day Jewish studies in Budapest are not just about the past. They are about the future. New generations are uncovering their heritage, reconnecting with a history that was almost taken from them. Young minds are studying Jewish philosophy, law, and history, not just to remember, but to shape what comes next. Events, conferences, and academic programs breathe new life into Budapest's Jewish intellectual scene. And yet, a question lingers. Can Budapest reclaim its place as a global center of Jewish thought? The city has come far, but the scars of history are not easily forgotten. Its story is still being written. And if history has taught us anything, it is this: Jewish studies in Budapest will never disappear. They will evolve, adapt, and above all, endure. Want to know the full depth of this transformation? Watch the full video to explore the extraordinary revival of Jewish scholarship in Budapest. History is never just about the past. It is about the present. It is about the future. And nowhere is this clearer than in Budapest, a city where Jewish heritage still breathes, where whispers of resilience still echo through its streets, and where the legacy of Jewish studies refuses to fade. We have seen how Budapest, once a powerhouse of Jewish intellectualism, endured both unimaginable loss and remarkable survival. We have traced its journey from a center of Jewish thought, through the fires of the Holocaust, to its slow, painful rebirth. But here's the question: why does Budapest still matter today? Why, after everything, does this city remain a crucial part of Jewish intellectual life? The answer lies not just in its past, but in the way its history continues to shape Jewish communities worldwide. Budapest stands as a monument to Jewish resilience. Every stone in the Jewish quarter, every restored synagogue, every book once thought lost but now found, they tell a story of survival. For Jews across the world, Budapest is not just a place of history, but a symbol of what it means to hold on to identity, even when the world tries to erase it. It is proof that knowledge, once planted, can never be truly destroyed. But Budapest is not just a memory. It is still alive with Jewish thought and culture, still contributing to the larger conversation of Jewish identity. The same institutions that nearly vanished have returned, not just as relics of the past, but as centers for the future. Jewish studies in Budapest are unique because they bridge two worlds, the East and the West, the old and the new, the religious and the secular. Unlike Israel or the United States, where Jewish scholarship often follows established traditions, Budapest is a place of rediscovery. Here, students are not just preserving Jewish thought, they are reconstructing it, piecing together fragments of knowledge that were almost lost forever. In Budapest, Jewish studies are not just about learning what was. It is about uncovering what could have been. Across the world, Jewish communities look to Budapest as a reminder of the cost of forgetting. The city's memorials, museums, and institutions do not just honor history, they warn against repeating it. The shoes on the Danube, the Holocaust Memorial Center, the rebuilt synagogues, they force the world to remember, to learn, to never let history be erased. And yet, Budapest is not frozen in the past. It is moving forward, growing, evolving. Young Jewish scholars are once again debating texts, questioning ideas, and shaping the future. Jewish heritage here is not just being preserved, it is being reimagined. So why does Budapest still matter? Because it teaches us that knowledge is eternal, that history, no matter how broken, can be rebuilt, that Jewish thought is not just a relic of the past, but a living, breathing force shaping the future. Want to see how Jewish studies in Budapest continue to shape the world? Watch the full video to uncover the extraordinary revival of Jewish intellectual life. Budapest's story is not just about history, it's about survival, about the unbreakable human spirit, and about knowledge that refuses to be erased. We have walked through time together. From the golden age of Jewish thought, where Budapest shone as a beacon of Jewish scholarship, to the darkest chapter of history, where hatred tried to silence it forever. We have seen how, even after devastation, Jewish studies in Budapest refused to die. Through oppression, through war, through silence, it endured. Because history is never truly in the past. It lives in the present. It shapes the future, and the future of Jewish studies in Budapest is still being written. The synagogues stand once again. The books are being read. The debates have returned. But is it enough? Can the city ever reclaim its place as a global center of Jewish thought? Or will the memory of its intellectual greatness fade away, lost to time, forgotten by the world? That decision is not just for historians or scholars. It belongs to all of us. Because knowledge is fragile. It can disappear in a generation if no one chooses to remember. It depends on those who care, those who listen, those who refuse to let history be erased. And today, that includes you. You have just glimpsed a story that few people truly know. A story of loss, of strength, of rebirth. But there is still so much more to uncover. The details, the untold stories, the hidden truths that shape Budapest's Jewish heritage even now. So don't stop here. Watch the full video, because every moment reveals something deeper, something more powerful than words alone can express. Like the video, because stories like these deserve to be heard by more people. Comment below. Tell us what part of this journey resonated with you the most. And subscribe to the channel, because history is full of untold stories, and we will keep bringing them to you. This is not the end. It is a beginning. A journey of learning, remembering, and ensuring that what was once nearly lost is never forgotten again. Be part of this mission, because history is only forgotten when we choose to ignore it. Subscribe now, because the past still has so much more to tell.